Now, this is the second day of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan. The focus of this visit is, of course, the quadrilateral security dialogue, that is the Quad Summit. The Indian Prime Minister is also attending the quadrilateral summit with the American President Joe Biden, the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And after the summit concludes, the Indian leader will also hold 3 key bilateral meetings as well. The first bilateral will be held with the American President Joe Biden. The Indian Prime Minister will also be meeting with the Australian Prime Minister as well for a round of crucial talks. And in the second half of the day, the Indian leader will meet with a host country, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Now, in the meeting with the American President Joe Biden, the leaders are expected to review the India-US strategic partnership. The Indian Prime Minister will also discuss the further consolidation of India's multifaceted relationship with the United States. The two leaders will also continue their dialogue on regional developments and contemporary global issues. The US-India talks will not just be limited to the bilateral agenda, but will also include issues of regional and global significance. Therefore, Joe Biden and the Indian Prime Minister are expected to discuss the war in Ukraine. The Indian Prime Minister will also meet one-on-one with the newly elected Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. In a pre-departure statement, the Indian Prime Minister had mentioned the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. At the bilateral meeting, the multifaceted cooperation between India and Australia will be discussed, along with regional and global issues of mutual interest. Later in the day, another bilateral is lined up with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, and India sees the economic cooperation between the two countries as an important aspect of their strategic partnership. In order to woo potential investors for India, the Indian Prime Minister also met with at least about 30 CEOs and business leaders in Tokyo. The Indo-Japan ties have, of course, been growing stronger. They've always been very strong, but they're, of course, growing stronger. And the Indian Prime Minister has described the India-Japan equation as a necessity for peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. So this of course is a crucial setup lineup which the Indian Prime Minister will have in terms of the meetings, with 3 bilaterals lined up after the Quad Summit. It will be very interesting as to how this equation, of course, will be taken forward. So we earlier heard the opening remarks that were made by the 4 leaders, where the Indian Prime Minister, of course, stressed on the necessity for cooperation, for nations to come together to tackle the challenges of the 21st century. He also said that it is important for nations to, of course, come together to resolve their differences. So these are live visuals that are coming in from Tokyo. The Quad Fellowship launched, first of its kind fellowship on the sidelines of the quadrilateral dialogue meeting. Now, the American President Joe Biden will launch the application for the Quad Fellowship that will allow American, Japanese, Australian and Indian masters and doctoral students in science, technology, engineering and mathematics to study in the United States. Biden, along with the fellow Quad leaders, will be launching the first of its kind scholarship program in the afternoon today. The American President in the morning will be taking a family photograph with other Quad leaders in Kantai in Tokyo. After this, he will participate in the second in-person Quad Leaders Summit with the other leaders.
Allow me to call on young students and researchers. Why? For this challenging but truly fascinating fellowship program.
本フェローシップが4カ国をつなぐ架け橋となり、インド太平洋地域や世界の課題を解決し、そして成長に導く力となることを大いに期待しています。
Let me conclude by wishing that this fellowship will become a bridge that connects our 4 nations, and that it will empower us to lead and to grow so that we can resolve many of the challenges of the Indo-Pacific region and around the world.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much.
総理ありがとうございました。 では本フェローシップの運営団体でありますシュミット財団のブレイバーマン CEO にも入りいただき、記念撮影を行いたいと思います。We would like to move on to the photo session. Let me ask Mr. Braverman to join the leaders. Mr. Braverman is the CEO of Schmidt Features, which administers the fellowship. 写真のカメラのお向きください。Please look at the photographers.
Mr. President, is the policy of strategic ambiguity towards Taiwan dead?
No.
Could you explain?
No.
Mr. President, would you send troops to Taiwan if China invaded?
Our policy has not changed at all. I stated that when I made my statement yesterday.
Mr. President, you said that you would intervene militarily to defend Taiwan, though.
すみません、以上をもちまして、日米豪印フェローシップ創設記念行事を終了いたします。岸田総理、アルバニージー首相、モディ首相、バイデン大統領、ご出席の皆様、ありがとうございました。We would like to conclude this ceremony. Thank you, Prime Minister Kishida, Prime Minister Albanese, Prime Minister Modi, and President Biden for the present here. Now the leaders will leave the venue. では、首脳の皆様が退出いたします。Press people, please stay here. プレスの皆さんはそのまま、今の位置にとどまりください。
Go for the lunch.
So this, of course, was the launch of the Quad Fellowship program that's been launched by the American President Joe Biden. And what is interesting about this Quad Fellowship is that students from India, Japan and Australia will of course, be given a chance as part of this fellowship to travel to the United States and study in the United States in one of the STEM fields, that is science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And this of course, is more in terms of improving the people-to-people connect between these different nations. And this Quad Fellowship program was just launched there with the 4 leaders. So a crucial summit meeting, of course, is underway, where different issues have been planned out for the 4 leaders. They are discussing several aspects in terms of how to take this Quad equation forward. Quad, remember, is not a military alliance. Quad is just a grouping. It is a forum for the 4 democracies to, in fact, come together to battle the challenges that are faced by these 4 nations in the 21st century. The key amongst them is to counter the rise of a belligerent China. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.